Okay, good afternoon. If you could take your seats, we're going to get started. I appreciate your patience with us. We're starting a little late. We had a little snafu in the BLI, a tradition of using our leadership habits. We expected challenges. We have some catering challenges, so there will be food. It'll be a little late, but it will be here. So thank you for bearing with us. So welcome. This is the Barger Leadership Institute Capstone Project Final Showcase. Thank you so much for showing up and showing support for our teams. They really appreciate it. They've been working really hard. It was kind of frenzy downstairs on the 8th floor as I saw many of the teams practicing and readying for you today. So I want to thank panelists, donors, community partners who are joining us here today. Also, we have both Ellen and Josh London from the London Foundation who have sponsored a team the past 2 years. So thank you for your support as well. So when these 8 teams were selected for the project in May, they started with a really broad vision of what they wanted to accomplish. And as the teams progressed through boot camp week in May, that vision might have changed a little bit. It got challenged through some feedback and some work and some pausing and reflecting and also doing some research as well. Over the summer, the teams met with key stakeholders, they conducted interviews, and they collected evidence to test their vision to see if it would hold. And then this fall, as the students returned to campus, these teams, in addition to their coursework and all their other commitments and committees, launched their projects. The road was not easy. They persisted through challenges big and small, including navigating the university's procurement and reimbursement system, which could probably take up just a whole month in entirety. I see snaps back there. They worked with and through others and made the best decisions they could based on the evidence they collected. These are all useful habits for good leaders. They were not alone. They benefited from the support and coaching of their GAs. So if I call your name, please stand. Anthony Castaneda, Ben Ike, Anjali Narwani, Ivy Tran, who's on our panel and graduated this last year too, Fatima Haq, our academic program manager, and our other support staff, Elizabeth Rohr and Elizabeth Kane-Toth. So today, each team, yes, applause for our support staff. Thank you. Today, each team has 4 minutes to convey their vision, their implementation plan, and what they learned from their capstone experience. After which our esteemed panel will offer frank but friendly feedback to each team. And so without further delay, I'd like to invite the BLI's director, Ram Mahalingam, to the stage to introduce our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to have you all on a Friday afternoon, taking your time to be here to support our students, because you can do a lot more fun things on a Friday afternoon. I would do, but thanks for being here. So I have the honor of introducing our panelists, who we have a lot of the detailed description about who they are in the program. Please do read them, because it's very inspiring to see where they are, what they're doing. Dave Barger, who is the founder of this institute, named after him, and he is the founder CEO for the JetBlue, and he has been a constant source of support for us, and I'm glad he was able to come here today. Ivy Tran, who was a graduate from here, and she's working at the tax consultant at Deloitte Tax, and she has been a support for all our students. Hector Galvan is the manager at the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives. So he's bringing a very important perspective for us to understand, and we were so excited to have him here. Crystal Ashby, who is one of the people who have been looking at all the students over time, how they grow over the time, and she's probably the most popular guest speaker for us. So she's always sold out. And last night she met with all the students. There was no-show, which is important, which happens all the time with Rick and me. So I'm so happy she can join us. She's as a director of the boards of the Executive Leadership Council. She's also at the Holocaust Museum Houston. So a number of things she's doing. Of course, David Corres, who is another supporter for us, and he has been one of the core support group for the institute, and he's joining us. He had a lot of 30 years of technology analyst and portfolio manager, and he brings a very rich industry perspective. So when I was thinking about today's event, of course, they are going to give you feedback. Very famous. There's a famous quote from Schiller. He says, "If you're giving critique, you should do it with social grace. And if I'm receiving the critique, I should receive it with dignity." So hopefully, we can see more grace and dignity from you and grace from them. Thank you for your time.
So we'll start with heel move shift.
Wow, so we're back here again. Yeah, I haven't really been on the stage for a minute. Cool, let's do it this way. Hi, everyone. So, my name's Tarek McCowie.
My name is Miriam Rita.
And we do have an eye clicker, that's fun. So, before we get into what heel move shift and everything is, we want to talk a little bit about the challenges we faced as Middle Eastern North African students. Because we were part of this community, we understand the barriers that the youth face in this community along the health education access due to stigma and health disparities. So me and Miriam talked, and we've been friends for a while, and as well as Hector, our advisor in the audience, and we thought, this is on, yes. And we thought, we want to talk about this. Why is this still an issue, and why is this not being addressed? And we created a nonprofit called Heel Move Shift. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on educating about cardiovascular, mental, and nutritional health, specifically in the Middle Eastern North African populations. So the big question is, Tarek, how are you going to tackle these big health topics? They're giant. Where are you going to start? We decided that youth educational programs is the way to go. Last year, we completed our first pilot program at Central Academy in December, where we followed a cohort of 22 students, basically in the 9th and 10th grade. We followed them for 12 weeks, and we taught them a variety of topics from yoga, CPR, AED, nutritional aspects, and intrinsic values. We found that the program was phenomenal, not only from the reviews that Miriam will be talking about in a little bit, but also from the stakeholders, the principals, the counselors, the students asked us to come back. They wanted to continue these programs. So we continued another program at Crestwood High School where we carried on 2 different programs similar, and we followed, I think it was 44 students for this program. In this coming winter semester, we have an increase of 5 programs, a demand from 5 different public schools, but unfortunately due to funding and resources, we can only go to 3. And we hope to continue these programs. The next big question is, how do we know these are effective? And Miriam will be walking us through that right now. 2 minutes left, thank you.
So what we've been seeing is that our students are feeling a difference from our programs. From the initial survey, we found that 6 in 10 students claimed to understand privilege, but only 9 in 10 of them could not define marginalization. And so after giving this pre-survey, we did a survey all the way at the end of our program after 12 weeks of seminars. And we found that 100% of students recommended our seminars to future classrooms. From 1% having CPR training, we went all the way up to 100. Now 100% of them can define AED as well. In terms of understanding the areas of wellness, which U of M has really enforced in our learning here, we went from 13% to 94% just in 9th grade students. In terms of feeling comfortable describing identities, both their own and for other people, we went from 5% to 50%. And understanding their conflict style, now 100% of students feel confident addressing this. Furthermore, we did receive a lot of student feedback, and this is just from 1 seminar out of 12. It taught me a lot about mental health, it helped me figure myself out, and it was very interactive. So we are seeing that there is a huge change in our students after our programs.
So, due to the time restraints, ask us about our challenges after. We will talk about that. Something that Heel Move Shift really wants to emphasize is, first, we're always here to work with the community to heal the community. move the conversation towards a healthier direction, and shift the stigma away from these pressing health concerns. Thank you so much, Be Alive, for all the mentorship you've given us. Because this is the conclusion of our partnership, I would love to ask the audience for more mentorship and more financial support. That's the only thing holding back these programs from expanding and being such an effective change for these students. Thank you so much for your time, and of course, the phenomenal BLI habits. We used all of them, but these are our 4 highlights. Thank you. And we love questions.
So I just had a quick question. You mentioned that you had challenges, but that your program was successful, and one of the key things was holding you back was finances. But what are other key challenges? I mean, I imagine it's difficult to go into a high school and try to reframe the way these students are thinking or help alleviate any tensions they have.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just gonna put this down because my voice is loud enough.
I think mine too.
Oh, we need these. Okay, I'm gonna put these down. So this is just one challenge that comes to mind. When meeting with Central Academy, a very conservative high school, we understand that conservatism, we're from that community. One of our programs talks about LGBTQ, and they had a concern about this just because the parents aren't really aware of this kind of community. So the counselor had asked us to rephrase the program that we conducted around this identity. After talking about it for a while with the counselor, we told her, like, hey, the likelihood that people in your community identify as LGBTQ is just, it's prevalent. It's going to be there. I think this is a very important subject to talk about. And after we ran through the seminar that we were planning to conduct, we made a couple changes, and we were able to effectively understand the community and teach these vital aspects that are a core fundamental part of HMS. The counselor sat in with it. She was very much an integrative part of that seminar, and we found that the students learned a lot, as well as the counselor, and as well as Heal, Move, Shift. That was one of the challenges, and there are a lot of challenges like that, entering and exiting any kind of community. And we're thankful for BLI for allowing us the Ginsberg Center presentation, which taught us a lot about that. So yeah, thank you for your question.
I have a follow-up question. So great job, by the way. And I'm wondering, what culturally inclusive practices did you utilize? Since you spoke specifically about the Middle Eastern North African identity, how did you build those relationships with the students, connect on a perhaps cultural level, or what practices did you use that resonated well with the students? Yeah,
so again, through BLI, we learned last year through our research that based on the studies of culturally relevant teaching and learning, we found that the most prevalent way of teaching students of color is by having facilitators of color. And that's exactly what we do. Another challenge we faced was during our pilot program, we had a yoga seminar where a good friend of mine, Beth Bryans, came in, taught these students about yoga, but she is a white woman white skinny woman. And that's exactly the way she presented herself. She said, hey, I'm a white skinny woman, but that's not the only people who do yoga. We found after that, we're like, hey, if we really want to teach these practices, and there's already a mindset of yoga being targeted only to a specific community, we should really be fighting against that. So for our next program, we decided that we will only have a yoga instructor, a person of color, and we will really talk about the culture behind that. And that's one of the restorative justice techniques we learned to practice during our pilot program. Yes, Dave.
What are the major next steps that you think you'll take to try to get these programs to more tightly embed in communities?
So we've been talking a lot about expanding our research and understanding how this program not only impacts students but also families. So our next step is figuring out how to allow parents to come in and join our programs and really understand how their students are changing. We have amazing opportunities by working with at least 3 to 5 schools to get so many parents involved. And from that, we really hope to have students as well learn these and create programs later on, which we have been working on in collaboration with Call for Humanity at U of M, to have student-led projects based on our seminars so that they could go and implement these ideals through their own community. So that would kind of be for all graduating students a second program after that. So those two aspects are first in line as of now, but we will be continuously implementing new programs to further integrate the community.
And to build on that just a little bit, we've received offers from Office of Health, Equity, and Inclusion at University of Michigan to further institutionalize our programs just based on our data and the research that we've conducted. And we're very excited to expand and make sure that we are as effective as possible.
Two quick questions. One is, have you thought about partners external to the University of Michigan in terms of being able to expand the scope of the program? And then what does marketing or brand or advertising look like for you in terms of creating an additional level of momentum underneath what you're doing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got the first question.
Awesome.
So in terms of marketing, we really want to expand our research a little bit more before we go and present to the community, which is why we're focusing on involving parents into our research to really increase that trust. So once we get that, then we can go to external partners.
Yeah, and to build on the external partners, we want to, every community has a community center. We want to start building relationships with those community centers in order to fully and effectively understand the community that we're at. Regarding building momentum, we had a great meeting with Dave, and he gave us a couple recommendations to very much, it's not only the schools we're impacting this entire community. So bringing in the families, as Mary mentioned, possibly publishing in the local newspaper, like, hey, if we all do this challenge together, send in pictures that you're doing it, we'll all gain points and we'll give giveaways or stuff along those lines. We really want to increase the momentum while making sure we're doing this effectively and understandably in the community. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Maybe one last quick question, if I may. It's by the way, nice pitch. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And the 501c3 is in place, right?
Yes.
And you talked about and further financial support. What's the dollar figure you're looking for?
Yeah. Also, Dave, I always get scared when you ask a question.
Why?
Last time.
It's that Dave. It's that Chris.
No,
it's that Hector.
It is
it's
a you,
Ivy.
Dave. Last time we were here, Dave said, so everyone else just presented. Can you guys please just say why you deserve the money and they don't? And I was like, God damn it, Dave. So financial value. First of all, I'm going to be super corny. Is there a financial value on education? But yes, but there is. We have a budget and everything. These programs typically cost around 20 to 25 students, around $600 to run. All the facilitators volunteer their time, and they, all the yoga instructors, nutritional advisors also just offer their time for free. So a lot of this is in regards to the yoga mats we purchase, the art supplies. We very much believe that these students should be able to go home and continue their practice. So they're not turning in their yoga mat, just learning it one time. Or the wellness wheels we offer them. So basically, if financial people or financial advisors would like to donate, like donate for half a program, donate for a full program, give us memberships, a bronze, a gold, a silver, whatever you'd like. We can definitely talk about that further.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, we have Alternative Reality Initiative, and just a friendly reminder, 4 minutes presentations and then 4 minutes of feedback.
4 minutes of feedback.
That's it.
You want to Sure. That's aimed at us.
Yeah, I know. It's aimed at us.
Testing. It's on? It is. Hi everyone, my name is Michael Zhang.
And I'm Matthew Kosova.
And we are RA, or the Alternate Reality Initiative. We're the first and only student organization at the University of Michigan centered around immersive technologies, such as virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. Here at RE, we call this XR technology. So Matthew and I both came to the University of Michigan passionate about XR technology, but we quickly found out that there was a lack of learning opportunities and lack of hardware access here. In response, we started ARI back in January of 2018, and since then we've been hosting weekly development workshops as well as other events in order to introduce students to XR. So our mission at ARI is to foster the next generation of XR innovators. The way we do this is we have 4 key principles. Explore. We help introduce students to XR technology through our social events as well as demos. Learn. Through our weekly development workshops and other events we hold, we're helping students understand some of the basics of XR development as well as what the technology is on a conceptual basis. Build. Through our workshops, students gain those practical skills which they can then apply to build their own projects. And finally, connect. We invite speakers to come to our meetings. We also host other types of talks and connect students to the greater XR ecosystem. Now, over the course of this BLI journey, we've gone through a lot of different iterations as well as changes. So first of all, with expect challenges, given the fact that me and Matthew both started this organization as freshmen, credibility was an issue that we had to continuously address by showing our results. We have start small. When we started, we were hosting bi-monthly development workshops, and from there we were able to rapidly iterate, gather feedback from our members, and improve on our events to where we are at right now. And finally, engage the world. We've been super thankful for the amount of support we've gotten from BLI, as well as from other people in the XR industry who've helped given us advice on different ways that we can continue to grow and succeed at ARI. Now, over the summer, me and Matthew set out to address these 3 research questions. Essentially, what we wanted to do was understand the way that XR technology can be important to the University of Michigan, as well as demonstrate the value that we can provide to our stakeholders. And now Matthew is going to talk more about our methods and results.
So over the summer, we conducted 15 to 20-minute Google Hangout interviews with our stakeholders. Sorry, where one of us asked questions while the other took notes. Additionally to the interviews, we also attended the Augmented World Expo conference, where we were able to speak with and learn from XR professionals. From our members, we learned just how important our marketing efforts really were, as that's where most of our newer members were coming from. And we also learned that there was a need for more development workshops throughout the year. From the other XR student organization leaders, we really learned how to run a successful student organization, because we were able to take what each of those schools did best and use those skills for ourselves. From faculty members, we learned more about the resources and opportunities that are available on campus. From the XR industry professionals, we learned what companies are using this technology for and where they see this technology going in the future. Since last year, we've changed significantly. We've increased the amount of workshops that we'll be able to do by hosting weekly meetings now instead of meetings every other week. As well, we've also increased our marketing presence, and with that, our email list grew from around 100 students to right now around 500. We also brought on 3 new leadership members to help us create the educational content for our meetings. Going forward, we plan to continue hosting our weekly meetings, as well as 2 new aspects. 1, project teams. These will be groups of 3 to 5 students that we plan to fully support throughout a semester. And 2, in April of 2019, we will be hosting the first ever XR Midwest Conference. We want to bring together XR companies and XR professionals from the Midwest and show off the work that's being done right here beneath our feet. I want to thank you all for listening, as well as if you want to continue on this journey with us, you can visit our website, join our email list, or come talk to us after this event.
Very good. I'll jump in. Just curious on the explore, build, learn, and connect. Does connect also mean employment after this?
Yeah, so I would kind of say like the way that where RE is right now is we've done a lot of stuff related to the explore and learn part. With the project teams, that's towards the build. And then with the conference we're hosting, as well as in the future, we hope to foster more relationships with companies in order to offer those internship and job opportunities.
Super. Great. Thank you. Nice pitch.
A couple of questions. One is, what have been the production deliverables so far? have you taken a project to fruition and actually created something that can be used by others?
So do you mean by the content we produce from our workshops or with project teams?
Either way, either one.
Yeah, so for the first one, so most of our meetings that we have every week are development workshops. So we'll bring together the students that are there and then walk them through essentially a tutorial for either a virtual reality or an augmented reality workshop. And within 1 hour and a half, we'll actually create something with them. For the project teams, that's going to be a completely new program where smaller groups of students are working individually and we'll help support them along the way.
And that is primarily for practice or to actually respond to a demand, either in the marketplace or from the university?
Yeah, I guess, so for that answer, we're still trying to flesh out more exactly of like what people can do with their projects, but essentially we're trying to give them more of the action-based learning rather than just through our workshops learning how to develop some simple projects. We want them to kind of take charge and want to figure out what they want to build.
Great, thank you.
This question is probably going to sound like an odd one, but I looked at the fact that you have over 500 members on your email list, but you only get approximately 24 members per meeting. What are you going to do to actually increase the engagement, therefore the connectivity among them, which will then continue to move you forward even faster?
Yeah, so over this winter break, essentially, I'm going to be personally looking into what makes up our demographics of our members. We always ask them to sign up at each of our meetings, so we have data on not only like their names, but we also have their grades and interests. Mm-hmm. And so from there right now, we've been able to address the freshman and sophomore students, specifically within engineering CS, extremely well. And so over this break, we're going to be working to try to understand how can we provide value to some of the upperclassmen students as well.
Yeah, then to quickly add on that, obviously the returning members is a big concern of ours because we want to know why people aren't coming back. You know, for example, this year, our first meeting, we had somewhere between 50 and 60 students come in. In our second meeting, we had around 40, and then the next one around 30. And right now, we have that average of around 24, which is up from around 12 from last year. So.
Yeah, because I think your continued success is going to be tied to really understanding what the value proposition is for your membership. So, good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, great pitch, by the way. I want to know more about your XR Midwest conference. What are some of the goals that you would say you have for this conference, and how are you engaging partners, key stakeholders to make sure that this conference is a success?
Yeah, so on that point of key stakeholders, so an example of how we'll be engaging them, it was supposed to be yesterday, but got rescheduled to next week. We're meeting with a local XR company called Gwydion here in Ann Arbor, and we're going to speak with them about kind of what companies are looking for an event like this. We want to kind of get their inputs before we reach out more to larger companies and to, I guess, more companies.
Matthew has also been doing research on finding different ways of planning the logistics for the conference since the summer. When we were talking with some of the various XR student org leaders, we got some advice on how they've been hosting their annual conferences, as well as some of the other work that Matthew's been doing.
Yeah, I don't think we have the time now, but later on, if you want to come find me, ask me more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Up next, we have Being First.
There we go. Okay, so I'm Carlos. I'm Lance. And this is Being First. So Being First is a podcast me and Lance came up with over the summer. After first thinking we were going to do a massive open online course to have first-gen students sort of take courses along with their parents trying to find out how to navigate the campus or how to acquire social capital, which was also a research question. But after doing surveys and collecting survey results, we found that having a podcast that is ran by first gens and sort of is for first gens is what we came up with for our implementation phase. And our pitch is sort of what is a space where first gens can build community and sort of express the issues that we face. And our podcast being first is where we invite stakeholders, different experts in the field, students with their voices to come and sort of talk about things like identity, acquiring social capital, things that we go through in classrooms, and sort of how to graduate knowing that you did it being a first-generation college student.
So the problem for us was that there weren't enough spaces that were united where first gens could sort of share their unique perspectives on what it means to be first gen. So we understand that it takes extra work to be a first-gen student on campus, and a lot of things come out of that. So experiences of feeling just disconnected from other people on campus. We wanted to basically create a space where we could bridge that. So we did that by talking with students. Next semester we're going to talk with more. Talking with students, talking with community experts, professors who are experts in sort of class, race, and the intersections of those identities with the first-gen identity. We didn't really see a space where those types of conversations were having in mass in a way that was democratic, accessible. So our program, SOUL, was like for 5 students. How can we get the message of a SOUL program out to other students? That was our problem.
And our results are as follows. We've completed 5 podcasts and 3 are syndicated on Apple Podcasts right now. And you can just visit our table to get the link for that. And also, we presented at the First Gen Symposium where it was sort of like a listening party where we played a clip with Dr. Matt Sullivan, who taught us in our SOUL class. And our different podcasts include things from student voices, from doctors and PhDs that sort of studied the topic, and we found what would be engaging to our listeners. So we first started with, like I said, with a massive open online course and found that wasn't the best way we should go with this. And then we sort of had a problem with identifying how many we should have. So we decided to keep it to a single digit, like 5, and that's what we produced so far. When we first thought we would do 10 to 12 podcasts in a semester, but we are students too. So, and we had trouble trying to figure out who do we want to have on there, who's the most exciting. And then lastly, we had trouble trying to deliver our podcast at first. Like getting good at speaking is a work and it's a craft, but we're perfecting it every day.
And the fortunate thing is that at this point, I've really done enough of the editing where it's basically just copy-paste. It's pretty easy for me now, whereas in the beginning it was a little bit of a struggle. So now, next semester, I think we plan on doing more than 5 podcasts just because we have sort of refined our ability to produce these. And so the other thing we want to do is reach out to more students because unfortunately, you would think the professors were like the hardest ones to get a hold of because they're the most busy, they're traveling all over the country. But the students are oddly hard to get together all at once. And so we're going to work on that. We're going to work on making sure that we can get more students to come speak with us because we think they are probably the most important component of this process.
And the top 3 BLI habits we incorporated that were most important too was we're starting where we were, engaging the world around us, or reaching out to our immediate first-gen community, and lastly, collecting results, combining our efforts, and creating a podcast.
So what's up next? So next week, we're recording a podcast with White Lang. We're going to be talking about upward mobility. That'll be our last episode in this series for this semester. So as I just said, incorporating more student voices because they're invaluable, and expanding to more podcast platforms. So we want to get it onto Google Play next,
and Spotify.
Also creating an LSA site for our podcast, where people can just visit that, and then they'll be linked right to the podcast on Apple or Google Play.
Thank you so much.
for you.
Thank you,
before.
Crystal.
You're welcome.
The idea for the pivot, right, to podcast, I think is awesome. Absolutely fantastic. I'm a big Tim Ferriss follower, and Tim Ferriss talks a lot about the power of podcasts, and he said, you got to do a dozen. And the key is to make sure that even if it fails, you've learned something significant from it. So I don't see how you fail with this process once you get past a critical variable. What do you have for downloads? Do you know?
Well, the website just went live, 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago, yeah.
So this is...
Get approved by Apple, so.
Yeah,
gotcha.
which
So
was
you
a
don't
process.
know.
Yeah.
You don't know yet. So you've got this content all waiting, and now you're going to see. So how are you going to get the message out?
We have social media.
Yeah.
We're reaching out to professors in different departments. They can spread it in different advisors in different departments. And so they can spread it in their newsletter, their weekly newsletter.
Not being a podcaster myself, from reading a lot about people who do it and listening to lots and lots of podcasts, the one thing you might consider is the cadence of the podcasts, right? Instead of saying we're going to do 5, think about what is the proper cadence for your audience and deliver the content in that cadence. Just a thought. Thanks. It was great.
Thank you.
Sorry. So, and kind of a follow-up question to Dave was your metric of success once you publish your podcast, right? Beyond downloads, I imagine that you would want it to have some kind of like meaningful impact. And I'm curious what your research has been on the topics that first-generation students would want to learn about that they feel they're lacking.
Yeah, so through our research, we found that they feel like they're lacking how to, beyond basic study tactics and coming in not knowing anything about a university per se, we found that they need help relating or asking for advice from professors and advisors, going to office hours and things like that. So it's important that we have professors and students there come and talk about those issues. And sort of as a metric to measure that, we're going to have follow-up surveys, make sure we evaluate and read the different reviews we have because it is on Apple Podcasts. So we can see how many stars we get. Someone say, oh, it's a 1 star because all this was too slow. I wasn't too interested in this topic and things like that.
Just really quick. So then your podcast's name is Being First? Right?
Yes.
And it's solely focused on higher education?
Yes, right now.
So something that immediately came to mind for me was this whole first gen initiative that's being supported by the university and the chief diversity officer, and even the hiring of a first gen program manager. Have you collaborated with the first gen program manager or had conversations with the chief diversity officer to see how you can tie this podcast into kind of more institutional support structures?
Yeah, we've talked a lot with Dr. Hussein, who is the first gen program manager. So yeah, we're definitely considering how to make it a bit more institutional while maintaining our own sort of flavor.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the less than 1 minute. By the way, the comment with the microphone is, assume everybody in the room wants to hear us, right? If we're being webcast, so we should all be using that microphone for everybody who's doing the presentation. I also think about Being First, is it trademarked? Have you registered the domain? Is it, if this thing takes off, or have you protected it? Food for thought. Dave, over to you.
Kind of following on that, it seems to me that this content would be useful to anyone who's a first-gen student anywhere in the world, number one. And so that begs the question, not knowing much about it myself, are there key influencers in the social media community that you could reach out to that could help you propel your content or the process of getting content, or getting people to focus on your content?
Yeah.
But we've reached out to like people at Brown University around their first gen program. So we're definitely thinking about expanding it to other schools because we do think it is valuable for students everywhere. It's not just Michigan students. This isn't a Michigan problem. It's sort of a problem of elite education.
So do you mean that you would have other people at Brown doing their own podcasts?
Not necessarily.
Right. You want to maintain, right, broadcast yours. Right. Yeah. I like that idea better.
And this is just an idea for you as you look at when you continue to move forward and grow, getting some successful first gens to kind of give you those bullets that you're going to put out into the universe to draw people in, I think would be really helpful in growing your membership.
Thank you.
Your listening-ship, I guess is what I should say.
Thank you.
And we have up next, so.
Is this on? Is this on? Yeah?
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. All right. So we're up next. I'm Dan.
I'm Raymond.
This is Victor and Matt, also part of the team. We'll be presenting, and they'll help us out with questions. So let's get started. So imagine yourselves in any social situation where music is playing. This could be at a barbecue with a few friends. It could be at a house party. It could be at a bar outing. All of these situations have one main thing in common, that there's a single person controlling the music playing. And we found that this ends up causing two main problems. The first of which is for the guests of the party, who always have varying tastes in music that can't all be well represented by a single host. And the second main issue is for the host, who has to actively make sure that the music they're playing is suitable for the atmosphere at their event. So we're a team of juniors here at the University of Michigan, and we're studying business and computer science. And luckily, with our backgrounds put together, we were able to come up with a solution. Our solution comes in the form of a mobile application called UpNext, which is currently live on the App Store. UpNext provides a live collaborative playlist that gives everyone in a party a say in the music playing. We've put a lot of time and energy into making sure our application is as streamlined and as easy to use as possible, requiring just one tap to join a nearby party and one more tap to add songs to the queue or vote on an existing song to decide which song plays next. Now I'll pass it off to Raymond to talk a bit about our progress so far.
Thanks, Dan. So since our launch, we have been focused on our initial target market of college students, and our numbers thus far indicate that not only are we solving a real problem for our users love using our product. So, firstly, we have amassed over 1,000 users in Ann Arbor alone, and out of that, we have 150 using UpNext every week whenever they go out with their friends. Secondly, we have 2 bars in Ann Arbor using UpNext every day for their music. And our main source of growth thus far comes from 2 sources. Firstly, is through our network of Greek life organizations that have agreed to use UpNext for their social events. And secondly, is through our network of product ambassadors who have been a constant source of new users through which we've been able to gain new feedback regarding what to improve and what to keep out for our product. And currently, we have also a healthy adoption in other college towns, and we plan to branch out to other college towns starting early next year. So because we are a business, we do plan to make money. And this is our current business model. So a feature unique to UpNext is that whenever a song is played, it is listened to by many people at once. And therefore, this is a quick way for new artists and new songs to be quickly discovered. And we plan to allow artists to pay to have their songs suggested to users with similar music tastes. And secondly, we also plan to allow in-app ad displays to the users in our platform. So through our journey thus far, we have incorporated these 3 BLI habits. So firstly, we started small. We plan to ultimately be the to-go party app whenever people go out. And to do that, we have to do a lot of milestones. And the first milestone that we seek to accomplish is to first conquer Ann Arbor. And secondly, we build a team. To create a product like UpNext, we need people with various skills, whether it's business, computer science, or design. And we've been able to do that. And through that, we've been able to grow UpNext in a very efficient way. And lastly, we always ask. So we ask, why are people using UpNext? Why are people not using UpNext? And to answer those questions, we look at our data that we have, both quantitatively or qualitatively. Right. So before we end, we would like to thank everyone in BLI, all the staff, all the donors, for making it possible to turn our passion into reality. Thank you so much.
Quick question. By the way, nice, crisp presentation. Appreciate it. I want to play the music in Columbus and then East Lansing from here, right? Wreak some havoc in those cities. Curious on build a team, how many hours per week would you say that you're spending on this project, you gentlemen as a team?
So for us, we are students, like basically whatever time we don't put into our studies, we put into Up Next.
So if we like, let's say, have a big event and we realize there's, we've had this in the past where we've realized, we have some issue or something's just not user-friendly enough and we're trying to have this big event where many people are going to have their first impressions. I mean, we can easily put in like maybe 60, 70 hours, like if it's like that necessary and we're doing some big rework from a development perspective. But also so much time is spent reaching out to other communities on campus, other organizations, not just in Greek life, and those kinds of things as well.
So I'm a host and I'm having a party, okay? And I know what music I want to play at my party. Is there an opt-out feature so the host can control this sort of chaos that can happen in her party?
So ideally, we're targeting kind of the host who isn't trying to run a dictatorship on the party. But no, there is like a host override feature. So the host at the end of the day, if it's their own home or it's wherever they're hosting a party, they should be able to, override a certain song or maybe, kind of go along with whatever their own interests and preferences are. So there is that option, yeah.
And just to add, we also did add, like, you can filter whether songs are explicit or not, so that the host has more control over the party from the VLI and from input from our mentors.
Have you, I got the part about in-app advertising. Have you considered an opt-out for payment?
So
I don't want to see ads, so I'll pay 99 cents or I'll pay whatever the number is to.
It's kind of something I think we would consider after we establish the advertisement model, because we don't currently have advertisements in our app. That's something to consider if we feel that there's enough demand where people will pay to opt out, maybe with a premium subscription or something like that. Then we would consider, but it's not something we've directly considered so far.
If you make the ads annoying enough,
and hopefully the ads aren't annoying,
and the expense to get rid of the ads is low enough, you could have good. Okay,
definitely.
How are you selling it?
Right now, mostly through social media and word of mouth. Our social media hasn't fully picked up yet, but now that the product is in place and we know that it works, we've had good experiences with it. That's going to be a big kind of growth for us. We're also going to run advertisements on Facebook and Instagram, kind of like where our demographic, will be. And also we have ambassadors who will wear our merchandise and sort of post on their own social media. So that's how we're going to grow it. We'll also have events. If anybody wants to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like as we brought up in the past, we've had events sponsored by ourselves several times and also hosted by other fraternities on campus, as well as a few other organizations. So those are currently our major means of growth. And also we've created a promotional video that we hope to actually air like as an advertisement on social media, hopefully in the next few weeks as well.
And last one for me, I promise. Are the bars paying or they're getting it for free too?
Right now it's for free. It's all just
it's
so
all
we
for
can
free.
get traction.
Yeah.
Because we've realized that all of our business model pretty much entirely relies on us having a really strong user base. So that's been our foremost concern.
Great. Thank you.
Wait.
Next is Migrant Education Initiative.
So hi everybody, my name is Victoria Villegas. And we're with the Migrant Education Initiative. So first we wanted to define what a migrant was. I'm sure a lot of us have been hearing the word in the news, especially with the migrant caravan and whatnot, but we really wanted to specify what it meant for our project. So here we're referring to people who move seasonally to find work in agriculture. So now that that's aside, we wanted to explain first how we came up with this at the University of Michigan. So U of M has a lot of programs that helps under-resourced students. So we go to Jackson, Detroit, Chicago, but unfortunately there is an urban bias in approaching these issues. So agriculture is Michigan's second largest industry, but unfortunately the students and parents of this demographic are severely underrepresented in higher education. So to address these issues, we set out to answer 3 main questions. First, what programs already exist for the migrant community? What issues specifically do they face, and what can we do to help? So we started with informational interviews both at the University of Michigan and beyond. And this was really to get a lay of the land and see what was happening in discourse around migrant education. And then after that, we were able to do focus groups and surveys with the actual community. And this was one of our most important points because we really wanted to highlight their voices in our implementation.
Yeah, so the biggest key takeaway we took was the parents that we interviewed were very optimistic about their children pursuing higher education. And there's also this dilemma that 83% of students and 79% of parents wanted their children to also stay close to home. And then the biggest obstacle, of course, was access to financial aid as the cost of college increases. So what's next? We are partnered with the Van Buren Intermediate School District, and we have come up with 2 different methods of implementation. The first one being that we set aside a small fund to pay for students to apply to college and use that money for their application fee waiver up to 3 times. And then the second thing we would like to do is bring these students to campus around the summer during the weekend and get them exposed not only to the campus, but the resources that the University of Michigan provides. So we ended up using all the BLI habits throughout our project, but the biggest ones we thought of were starting small and pausing and reflecting. Because at the beginning of the Capstone process, we thought that we were focusing on a community in a very broad way, so we ended up closing in on one community, which was the Van Buren community, and then also pausing and reflect, using these small goals that we set aside along the project to pause and reflect, especially when it came to intervention. And then the Capstone process has allowed us not only to be logical thinkers, but mindful researchers, and given us skills that we will use for the rest of our lives in our future work. So thank you.
So I'll come in with a question. So one of the key takeaways you had was there are financial obstacles that occur, and I imagine it's not just the application fee, but even throughout the 4 years of college. Do you ever consider connecting these students or these families with financial advisors? I think something like lacking of how would they think about planning for the future or planning for their college years?
Okay, so we actually started this project in the leadership lab where we created a pamphlet, and in that pamphlet we provided a bunch of financial resources and also advertised the new what's it called, where Michigan takes care of the tuition for
the Go Blue Guarantee.
Go Blue Guarantee, yeah. And also on our website where these students will apply, we're going to put instructions on how to fill out the FAFSA as well as the CSS profile.
Plus, for the campus visit, we also hope to touch on that topic as well, financial planning and how to really navigate that process. But that'll be until they come and visit.
So you mentioned financial barriers being one of the main issues that student communities, migrant communities are facing. Have you explored the topic of continuous support throughout the high school experience to give students access to resources in order to be best prepared for an institution like the University of Michigan?
In terms of what?
Perhaps tutoring services or encouragement of enrollment in AP courses, honors courses, thinking strategically about extracurricular involvement throughout their time in high school, just various things like that.
Yeah. So the only problem with that is that because this is a migrant community, so what happens is that usually there's a big group of people that comes during the summer. So I would say from May to September. They're here in Michigan working in the fields and agriculture, and then from after that, they go back to Florida, Texas, California, wherever. So there is a big gap that we're not able to reach them, and that's usually during the school year. So that's why we're focusing more of our efforts during the summer, because that's really what we can do here at Michigan.
Often in a migrant community, part of the dynamic there is that those young people are also going to be a part of the financial impact in the family. Did you all, in the interactions you had with the parents and their desire for their children to go to school, did you all have any conversations around how you're going to also manage that expectation or that lack of resource to the family going forward? I mean, I think there's an education piece for the students, but as I listen to this and think about path forward, have you thought about what the education process might be for the parents and other family members?
Well, so that wasn't something specifically that parents had expressed concern about, was lack of maybe assistance or anything. But yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
It's a sort of a knock-on from the success of potentially your program and getting these students.
Yeah.
It can have an impact on the family dynamic in that that resource is no longer available to help support the family. And I look at this, for instance, when we were talking to first-generation students in other schools in Texas, and the parents having a great concern that they would then leave the family and they wouldn't give back to the family. So have you thought about how, and it's not something maybe that would have come up in your conversation with the parents, but how you might also look at helping to educate the parents on the benefits of their child going this path?
Yeah, that's something that we haven't looked at just because it wasn't necessarily part of the data in the group that we were looking at specifically. But I would say that overall what we did find is that there is a great enthusiasm for higher education within the community. And I think we had talked about this a little bit in terms of just through this process and through talking with other people, there's a lot of pushback because a lot of people think that, that they're not, migrant communities are not going to want education because they want their children to stay close or whatever. But I think one of the biggest takeaways is that they do want these opportunities. And even though there are all these barriers, like you said, like they're not going to receive the assistance or, they're not going to be there for emotional support and whatnot, I think that the want is there. And I think that while there are all these barriers, I think that right now, I think what we want to focus on is just getting them there to higher education.
So you mentioned that you want to get the students here. And so my question is what does that look like? You're successful, you get them here, and now what is that, when they're here, what does that program look like?
So we don't have anything for them while they're here, but we would definitely introduce them to a lot of resources on campus that would help them in their first gen, because they're also first gen, so we would get them involved in first gen issues and La Casa. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's like a Latino union kind of thing. But I think like connecting them with those resources more than anything, because we were trying to get initially a CAMP program, which is a college assistance migrant program, which is federally funded, but because the institution has a lot of students who are high income, we don't qualify for that. So unfortunately, we did have to like step back and do more outreach rather than at U of M.
I'm looking at the 30 seconds. It's just a comment. I'd really push on the, by the way, nice pitch.
Thank you.
I'd really push on the urban bias. As your opening when you defined migrant, bless you. And then it was like agriculture, number 2 in Michigan, urban bias. I'd really push on that, and just open that up a little bit more, because you're 100% right. Seize upon that. Really nice, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the .org.
One in 4 menstruators feel the need to be discreet when handling products because of what they were taught in school.
2 in 4 menstruators who buy menstrual products actually feel that it is a financial burden.
Over 3 in 4 menstruators are caught in a menstrual emergency at least once per cycle.
So we are the .org. Okay. And we are a student organization and aspiring nonprofit focused on reducing the stigma surrounding menstruation and making menstrual products more accessible for all those who menstruate in the Washtenaw County area. To accomplish this, we have divided our organization into 3 initiatives, the first being our accessibility initiative, where we provide for those in vulnerable communities. The second is our education initiative, where we partner with local high schools and Planned Parenthood in order to prevent the stigma where it starts, which is with our youth. And then we also host awareness events on campus in order to open dialogue with our peers. And then our third is our downtown initiative, where we are working to reincorporate menstrual products back into business restrooms.
Over the summer, we conducted about 3 different aspects of research, including a literary analysis, focus groups, 10 individual interviews, and over 200 surveys. The results from these forms of research were that both genders do feel the effect of the stigma, and a lot of people recommended that we turn to increasing education as well as increasing accessibility. Some of the key data points that we saw were that 86% of the respondents said they find themselves in a menstrual emergency at least once per cycle. So we found that we need to increase the accessibility. And 50% of respondents said buying products created a financial burden. So this is why we'll be giving these products out for free, and the Dot House, which we'll talk about later, all of our products are free. 60% of survey respondents said they would not grab tampons or pads out in public, and this contributes to the stigma, but this is why we moved our Dot House from the public eye and we'll be implementing into private restrooms.
Okay, so another initiative that we decided to focus on for this project was our awareness initiative. So we had a few awareness events this semester. We had 1 period party per month where we sold brownies and started conversations with students about menstruation. We also had an event around Halloween where we had students write their period horror stories onto tampon ghosts. And then we put these in bathrooms around campus. And with this money, we actually provided products to homeless shelters around town. So we worked with Peace House, Hill House, and Mercy House, as well as the Shelter Association and Mission, to provide enough products each month for everyone who menstruates in these shelters.
So we used the BLI Habits Start Where You Are and Start Small to implement these into 3 different pilots, one at Blue Leprechaun, one at Slounge, and one at Aventura. And so we ran a pilot where people were able to take free products out of the bathrooms and got really positive feedback. And we're creating these final products of an established thing because we expected some challenges, and we had some challenges where people were taking the actual bins out of the bathrooms. So we're making a solid concrete thing that can be attached to the wall. And we've already had the Savco Aventura Freds agree to put in 8 of them into their bathrooms. And so these are some of the comments from our pilot, some of our favorite ones. We just got really positive feedback. People loved having them. They thanked us for it and wanted to see them in more locations.
So the sustainability of our downtown initiative is something that we didn't initially plan, but it's a subscription service. So you'll have a trial period, which will define your demand, your quantity, and the affordability. And then you'll have a monthly subscription with a one-time dispenser purchase, something similar to this. It's still being developed, but that's that.
Really quickly, we also have a future education project in the works with Planned Parenthood.
Thank you to all of our partners and sponsors along the way. We're looking forward to working with you all in the future.
Thanks.
So I just had a quick question, well, a few questions. About your sustainability, I'm a little bit confused about that. What is the purpose of that?
Okay, well, for the implementation of the... Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. For the businesses?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not your sustainability that you had with the plants at the end.
That wasn't plants. Okay, there was a thing in front of the plants that was supposed to, it's one of our prototypes. But we want to we have one over there. But permanent structures in the bathrooms, and then once you have a permanent structure in these, they'll subscribe to a subscription, and then once a month we'll send them the products of which they need. So all that they have to do is just put them into the dispenser.
Okay.
every month.
And then just a really quick follow-up question. I know there's a lot of initiatives, I believe New York City is one of them, where they're trying to remove the sale tax on tampons. Do you ever think about getting involved in that and raising awareness, right? And then getting students who are of like legal, voting age to think about that and maybe push for ballot initiatives like that?
I think that we have been just starting small here in Washtenaw County, and then eventually with our student organization and possible nonprofit, that's something that we could pursue later. But
We did talk about it some at the beginning, though. We met with Brittany, what's her last name? Patel. But she's like a huge advocate for it, and she works with Moash, and so we did partner with them a little bit, but we weren't able to focus on it during Capstone because we had to narrow down so far.
Yeah,
Is it a for-profit venture?
No, it'll be nonprofit. So the proceeds will go toward the subscription orders, but then also back into providing for the vulnerable communities, such as the homeless. And so through our period parties and all the money that we do raise goes to providing for them.
And so if you're successful in getting lots of commercial establishments to put your unit in their bathroom, and they're paying subscriptions every month, that will money that they'll pay out of their own profits or revenues. So they'll subscribe, they'll pay, and then
The products will go back into their own bathrooms, and
Right.
then anything else will go to donating to the homeless shelters to help them pay for their.
and it'll be an opportunity for them to use that as a donation.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I want to see the comments again. I'll get them on the. Everything was moving so fast there. Appreciate the pitch again. It's curious. What does success look like a year from now?
I think just being partnered with a lot of restaurants in Ann Arbor, like we mentioned, Savco, Sava's owns Sava's, Aventura, and Fred's, and so we already will have. Once we have developed our final product, it'll already be in 8 bathrooms in those 3 locations, and then. Hopefully Blue Leprechaun and Lounge, and then other places in Ann Arbor or Washtenaw County. We have also talked to people from the Detroit Restaurant Association, and they own a lot of restaurants in Ann Arbor as well. But as an organization, we hope to go down those avenues of education to prevent the stigma, because that's still a big part of what we want to do as well. And then,
No, gotcha. Thanks. I'm also thinking about just awareness of the dot house, or just just awareness as well. So not just number, but awareness. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
When you approach a restaurateur, what's the resistance?
So that's actually what I did. I work at Aventura's, and I went to my general manager, and I was like, why don't we offer them in the restrooms? And she was like, I don't know. And for Sava, who is somebody who's so big on hospitality and taking care of her guests, I was like, why isn't this something we offer? And the only thing I could imagine is that everybody pictures those big metal dispensers that are in restrooms, and they're like, businesses are so focused on their aesthetic. So we're trying to develop something that can color scheme and go with, and prove that it will be something that can still carry out.
So you have good sense that as you do that, more and more, the resistance level will be low to implementing these dispensers or carriers in other restaurants.
Yeah. When they see other restaurants are using it successfully and it's fitting other restaurants' aesthetics, I think that they'll be more likely to work with us.
Doesn't
Right.
look bad.
Right.
It will still look fine in your bathroom.
And I think another hurdle is the cost, but I had it up on one side where at one time we purchased 1,000 pads and 1,000 tampons, and it was $232. So as far as a business standpoint, I feel like that is something, because those 2,000 products would last a really long time for only $200.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to order them in bulk than just at a store.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We've got about 2 teams left, so up next is Venue Tourist.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sven. This is
I'm
Connor
Connor.
Tallis, and together we're Venue Tourist. To remind everyone, both Connor and I are computer science majors who are both studying business, and our startup, Venue Tourist, creates 3D and virtual reality tours for higher ed institutions. We're incredibly aware of how short 4 minutes are, and we're really excited to share all of our progress over the fall and the summer. So we're going to jump right into our progress over the fall.
Yeah, so one of the first things we did this summer was head to Chicago to take advantage of the awesome mentorship and networking opportunities that the London Idea Foundation provided us. And so through this, we spent a day just hopping from one tech startup in Chicago to the next, asking these awesome tech leaders what their advice is on our two main questions. What's the best market niche we should be exploring? And what's the best way to sell to that niche? And so at the end of this day, we gave a presentation to the London Idea Foundation supporters and networked our way into a consulting meeting with 8 different Boston Consulting Group consultants, asking them that same question. And with all of this advice, we set out to, with all of that advice, we set out on the summer adventure to see to try and implement it and to take it to the next level.
Yeah, and then immediately upon coming back to Michigan, we immediately set out to go implement the advice that we'd gotten from Chicago. So we got right down to implementing the first primary piece of advice that we were given. We implemented over a few weeks. In a few weeks, we had implemented a robust campus ambassador program at over 16 different universities. So we had filed for our LLC, written our operating agreement, and found legal help. And as the money started flowing in, and thankfully it actually started flowing in by this time, we had also found an accountant through the London Idea Foundation mentorship. In terms of deal flow, we had, by leveraging our campus ambassador program and a few other strategies that Connor will talk about when we went to DC, we would end up closing deals, either closing that deal and completing it throughout the summer, or pending deal that would be closed throughout up until May with over 10 different universities. Now, despite all of this success, there were multiple blunders that we had throughout the summer. In fact, there was one deal that we screwed up with the housing department so bad that Connor and I will both remember, this is how you work on a deal. And you know, the one good thing about our experience this summer is both Connor and I really stuck to our characteristics of really bubbly, mentorship-focused, getting feedback, and our very computer science-iness. So we really treated this thing that has grown into Venue Tourist as if we were, training a machine learning algorithm. With each new opportunity, each new outreach, each new email, each new negotiation, we had use that as an opportunity to note observations and then take in feedback and to really experiment. And one perfect example of us both getting mentorship and then implementing experimentation was actually this past Monday. We spoke with Mr. Dave Corris, who had a lot of great advice to say, as well as some great critiquement. But he also told us that, now that we had such success over the summer, we should really re-narrow. And in the course of re-narrowing, he recommended that we reach out to both businesses. We refocus on business schools, athletic departments, and potentially boarding schools. Because this summer we were all over the place landing deals with whoever and whenever people were willing to meet with us. And we thought, who knows if this guy has any idea what he's doing, but we implemented it immediately. We reached out to over 12 different athletic departments on Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning we were already starting to get advice and start landing deals the week that we're going to have those negotiations next week. So that was our progress over the summer, and now Connor's going to talk about our progress this fall.
So over fall, one of the things we did was we wanted to try a new sales method. And I call it the land in a new city and see what happens. So what we did was we landed in Washington, D.C. on a Sunday, sent out emails to every single dean and marketing director we could possibly find. And in the next 2 days, we were able to land 3 meetings at Howard University, Catholic University of America, and George Washington, all of which have landed or have led to deals or are set to still land a deal yet still. And what this showed us is that we can end up in a new city and sell. And so what our plan going forward is to take our best campus ambassadors, send them to new cities as well as ourselves, and implement this method. And we're really excited to expand in this format and take Venue Tourist to the next level. But what we are really needing at this point is still a COO, because Dave still hasn't given us his resume. Come on, Dave. In all seriousness, though, per the recommendation of Mr. Corris, we are trying to form an advisory board, a formal advisory board, so that we can bounce our strategic questions off of people. So if any of you are interested, we would love to have you. I really need some help managing Sven. He's too much. And with that, we'll take questions.
Very good. Great.
Well, Crystal's thinking. I want to see her question. She's got good ones. No, go ahead.
So we had the opportunity to speak to a lot of really cool people this summer. One of them even being Dan Gilbert. So we had gone down Detroit, and we had spoken to him and a few of his venture capital buddies. His venture capital arm is Detroit Venture Partners. And they encouraged us to keep doing what we were doing, which was land on an answer to our first research question, which is the best niche. So we've done that over the summer. But one piece of advice that we've gotten both from Dan's team recently and Chorus on Monday was maybe it's time to now start re-narrowing so that we have a brand. So currently, we are a 3D and virtual reality tour creator. Now, the thing is, we're both tech junkies, so we keep track of this industry pretty well. And there is tech company coming out of Y Combinator, incubator after incubator after incubator. So while we have done an incredible job, and we were just speaking with Ellen London this morning, and she was tossing us incredible idea after incredible idea to go into commercial real estate, I'll give you my tangible answer right now. We've done our experimentation over the summer, and what we've realized is we think we know what our niche is, and currently that's the three that actually Dave Corus laid out with us on Monday. And that's the niche that we're going to probably go after in both, at least the long term. We're going to finish our outstanding contracts, of course.
And the focus of this being to build a system so that we can take it to new, should we need to scale into new areas, it would be to identify and create these systems for this niche so that we can take it to the next one more easily and expand more rapidly that way.
But of course, first step is brand identity.
We're going to get in trouble if we keep answering questions.
What do you foresee being the biggest challenge as you continue to negotiate and continue to expand the number of contracts and clients you're serving? What do you foresee being the biggest challenge you will face in the next couple months or year or so?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is going to be maintaining the momentum. So we've done a decent job of, like we said, expanding these different networks, but the idea of focusing in one niche is to develop that brand and keep that momentum building in one area so that it starts to expand on its own. And so the biggest problem is we don't want to have to be landing in different cities every single weekend to expand. We want there to be some natural growth. We don't want to be the bottlenecks of this company. We want to make sure that there's an opportunity for expansion. And
there's not just the primary bottleneck of, hey, go land the deal, but there's also the secondary bottleneck of who's going to go create the model. And that, so, I mean, at the end of the day, we looked at it through, a computer scientist perspective. How can we optimize everything? And the only thing we've haven't gotten to the point of optimizing is the actual model production process. So that's something we're working to solve.
Can you, by the way, guys, good to see you again. Just curious, what does money flowing mean?
Yeah, so, great question. So far what do we want to talk about this? Yeah, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this.
Be careful, Sven.
And I'll actually bring up the deal we botched as well, because it might serve as some insight. Money flowing means, for the most part, we found that we can charge anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 for these tours. So that's primary instance number one. Now that we know that, how many people can we get to say yes? And so far, like I said, there have been 8 people who have said yes, 2 that we're trying to close on right now, those being George Washington University and one of the LSNA trying to close on get official yes deal in contract. So by end of May, end of summer, hopefully we'll be 6-figure. So that's where we're at right now. Now, Connor and I have no idea how to do taxes. So
that's why we need the accountant.
And we don't want to get ourselves into legal trouble. So that's where hey, who knows if a good accountant came in. Yeah, absolutely.
My question is, and we had an opportunity to talk the other day, and we could talk for hours and hours more.
Please.
Why are you convinced that people won't pay $50,000?
a great question, and it's one that Dean DeRue brought up. So when Connor made the initial pitch to Dean DeRue threw like, we landed on $7,500 without any negotiation. And one of his pieces of advice
When
after
we came back to him the following September with the product finished, he had already paid, by the way.
yeah, he had already paid, but once he had paid, he goes, oh, by the way, like we've been wanting to do this for 6 years, but nobody has come to us, A, with the technology or the ability to do it. I would have been willing to pay 20. Like next time, the second somebody offers you a number with no negotiation, no questions asked, that's probably a strong indicator that you could probably get away with charging more. The only problem is, and I didn't bring it up, I said I was going to bring it up, was the housing deal. So the beautiful thing about universities being segmented is that we can go to a bunch of different departments and ask for money without them feeling taxed, like they're giving us a bunch of money because it's all coming from different budgets. Now the problem is they all speak to one another. So if we're charging raw 7.5 and we go to the housing department and ask for 20, we completely botched that deal because apparently their marketing directors were, yeah. So that's the thing. So to get to the crux of your question, when we go to new universities, that is the strategy we tried when we flew to DC. We started throwing out numbers like 15, 20, and zero hesitation. So we'll see what happens. But now I like your idea of going straight to 50.
Not to get carried away.
Yeah.
But the thought process you might consider, rather than saying, we're going to do this, we're going to try this, we're going to do the other thing, we're going to do the other thing, is to say, how do we build a model that helps us understand how to efficiently and properly price our service, right? Rather than just throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks, right? Because the key, right, is repeatability, predictability, and visibility. And if you're not doing it the same way all the time, you're going to run into, in my estimation, quite a few problems.
Which is what happened with housing. We threw numbers out there. So it
Right, right.
I understand that you guys have landed on universities, corporations, and venue owners. But I think some of the conversations we had over the summer also led me to wonder when you might think about larger opportunities. So I was intrigued by the fact that you talked to Dan Gilbert, and talking to architects didn't come up, because this is something that, so a lot of this is back end, already established, already defined entities. Is there an ability for this to actually be even more useful to somebody on the front end to show the possibilities of things? And so when I look at this, that's one of the things that constantly floats through my mind. So just curious if you've thought about that.
We have spent some time considering this. One of the first things that, again, we had a meeting with DeRue again, and he was like, what about if you did it before they built the building? We're like, well, that's not exactly our technology. However, we do want to eventually get to that point. We want to be that full service, but at this point, the technology that we have is not there.
Thank you.
And our final team, Nev Next Steps.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Jessica. And I'm Grace. And we are Nav Next Steps.
So first, who are we? Nav Next Steps is a website platform that seeks to act as a high school student's personal virtual college counselor. Our core value proposition, or basically our goal and how we want to serve our students, is to support, provide personalized advice, and prioritize the needs of high school students in navigating the college application process. So first, what's our issue? Well, all of us on the team were brought together because we personally hated our own college application processes. And in fact, we don't know a single peer of ours who enjoyed it. So what does the current issue look like for students currently applying to college? Well, a student generally has three options. First, guidance counselors. Problem is, in the United States, there's on average 400 students to one college counselor.
Second, private college counselors. However, that'll cost you $80 per hour. So most students rely on themselves, and this results in a lot of the stress and anxiety that most of these students experience. So basically, you have the situation where there's a ton of students who are forced to do something they hate. So for older people in the crowd here, think taxes.
Going off of that, over the summer we conducted a wide array of research. So we interviewed current high school students as well as current college students, and 80% of these students resonated with the statement that they were confused while applying to college. So based off of this, we posed 3 main research questions. So first off, why do students find the process confusing, and what makes it confusing? Second off, what factors influence a student's post-college plans? And then third off of that is, what type of product can be most accessible to our market?
So starting with this first question, through our research over the summer, we came to this key finding that students don't know what the standard is. It's their first time applying to college. And so this uncertainty leads to most of the stress and anxiety they experience. And one of the assumptions that we had that was actually debunked through our research was that we originally thought that students had no idea what they actually wanted in a college experience, considering it was their first time. But most students do know what they want, but what they don't have is a way of organizing their thoughts into something tangible. And towards the second question, we found that most students, when applying to college, consider 2 main factors: their socioeconomic background and second, prestige. However, by the time they actually got to college, the major reason they stayed in college was because of student life. However, that factor in the original application process was only secondary.
Going off of that, what type of product can best access our market? So we found that there were 5 key points in this. So the first one being clarity. When students have a question that they want to ask, they want an answer that's clear and concise. Going off of that, they want a platform that's user-friendly and intuitive, so something that's easily accessible to them and easy to use. After that, they would like a network that is supportive, so somewhere where they feel valued and where they feel important in the process as well. Going off of that, they also want a trustworthy base, so somewhere that's credible and somewhere that they can trust putting their information into. And then lastly, they would like a platform that's personalized, so something that's catered to the needs of each individual student. And then going off of this is our project timeline so far. So first off, we built a team, and then based off of this team, we all had a diverse array of interests and fields that we were specializing in. And then we conducted interviews and surveys and benchmarked over the summer. Based off of this information and research, we were able to compile this into a business proposal, which you guys all have there. And then this past fall, we were able to host our first focus group, which was really exciting here at the University of Michigan. And based off of this, we were able to create our website and build algorithms based on like the surveys that we the survey questions that we posed.
And so going forward, what we plan to do short term is continue prototyping to improve our product. And one day what we hope to become is the go-to college app process servicer. So when people bring up the college application process, they'll automatically also think NAV Next Steps.
Lastly, we were able to incorporate all of these BLI habits, but one in particular was always ask. So we encountered a lot of challenges along the way, and we found that it was really important to ask questions and reach out to people who have been in this field before. And going off of that, we learned how to ask better questions. So by better questions, we mean asking questions that don't impose our own biases on the students and better forming and organizing the layout of our questions.
And that's the end of our presentation, and we just want to take this moment really quickly to thank all of the BLI's staff members for their support, as well as supporters, and especially shout out to our GA, Anthony, because we definitely would not be able to be where we are without everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious on the branding. By the way, very, very clear. Thank you, and thank you for the homework assignment as well. Appreciate that. It's when you think of that branding right there, how do I know that it's for an application process? That branding right there. I'm thinking of it might be airline navigation, airplanes, or thoughts.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So Jessica's actually our marketing and design person, and she was the one who was like, Grace, we need to change this. But then I was like, we've already used it for a while, so let's keep it for now. But we are going to change it, and we do agree with that. We're also going to shorten the name because it's kind of long.
Additionally, like going off of that, we want to have like some type of like slogan or like motto that's like associated with us. So one of them is like a one-stop shop to the college application process.
Perfect, because you can do the mouse print
Yeah.
underneath it, and that's fine. I mean, is it protected as well, trademarked, et cetera? But really, really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the differentiator between what you're trying to do and what College Confidential is doing and what other new sites and new services that have become much more aggressive in terms of their marketing strategies to the same customer base?
Yeah, great question. That's something we thought of ourselves too, and I think our primary differentiator is how simple we make the process. So you go through our so students, when they go to Nav Next Steps, they take a survey, and that survey takes them 10 minutes. But because of all the data we've gathered, we've found that those are the key questions students want answered. And then from there, everything that we propose to a student is immediately tailored towards that data. So if you go on anything that exists right now, students still have to go through a bunch of information, find themselves, oh, does this match with me? Is this something I want? We take that away from students, and so it cuts down significantly on time and also that stress of like thinking, oh, I'm missing out on something. No, Nav Next Steps will provide everything for you.
And going off of that, it's just like overall a really personalized process. So it's catered to the individual needs of this particular student and where they want to go in the future.
To follow up on that, have you had students who are, say, first-year students go through your process to figure out how, to what level of efficacy your survey is delivering?
Yeah. So actually that was like the purpose of one of our first focus groups. So in that focus group, we had students from the University of Michigan come in from all different fields and backgrounds and also socioeconomic backgrounds. And they provided us with valuable feedback based on like the order of our questions, how we were asking questions, and which questions they felt were like accurate and actually like helped develop the personalized schedule for them. So yeah.
Yeah, and then so that led to changes towards our survey. I don't know if that answered your question, but
What I'm asking is, have you been able to back test your survey questions such that you have reliable data that says, if I took the test, would I say to myself, wow, this is a really good representation of exactly what I would be thinking? Or maybe not so much?
So I think I'm still a little bit confused on your question. So are you saying that when students take the survey, they'll be like satisfied with the results, like the satisfaction rate, or?
No, what I mean is, you've got students who have already gone through the process.
Yeah.
So they may be first-year freshmen here, as an example. If they took the survey and you showed them the survey results, the raw results, would they likely say, wow, this is a great representation of what I would expect?
Oh, yeah. So pointing back to the focus group Jessica talked about, that was with students who are already here, and we told them to think about what factors they considered back in high school, and that those results were pretty similar to the ones that they came up with. We didn't do any like formal like data analyses on that, but that's a great point, and we should look back into that.
So what you're saying is what you're saying is, to be clear, you said, hey, what are the things we should be asking?
Yeah, so like.
But you've not circled around to say, are the things we're asking really delivering raw results that would match with the subject taking the survey?
Yeah, thank you for your question. But touching upon that also, from the focus group, we were also able to target like even more factors that students considered when applying to college. So again, like student life and stuff like that we hadn't previously considered. So we were able to gain that feedback from our focus group, and we were looking forward to implementing those changes in our program and in our algorithms as well. Thank you.
I have a question related to the target audience of your application, who you're marketing to. Are you targeting this more to students that may already perhaps be well versed in the options that they have to go to college and maybe deciding between one prestigious institution or another, or first-year students that may need just foundational information about what the application process looks like for college in general?
Yeah, great question. So actually, when we conducted a bunch of our research over the summer, we found that even though most companies in the space come into the space looking at these two segments as completely separate, the fact is these students have a lot of the similar pains. Like a lot of them, even though they have a general overview of what the college application process might look like, they don't know specifically when should I start, what are the exact things I should be looking at, what are the standards still. And so because we believe the pains are relatively similar, we're going to start off geographically expanding rather than saying this is one segment specifically. We'll start off by like southeastern Michigan.
Hi, guys. When you've done your test groups, have they just been students? Have you had people that work in the admission process and also the engagement with students when they're going through this also go through to see how it appears for somebody that's not a student, and if they think the results would be good coming out of that process?
Yeah, so we have conducted interviews with college counselors as well as admission officers, and that's one of our next steps, to actually have these people vet the website.
And going off of that, we hope to host more focus groups in the future with diverser populations. Because so far it's been only students, so yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Can we have another hand for our panel, please? They're so great, and because we're always talking about how feedback is love, I just wondered if you had any more general feedback or thoughts for us. We'd love to hear it on the whole.
So first of all, I'm going to start by saying I feel kind of bad because at each point I wanted to have a moment where I got to say, you did this great, you did that great, blah, blah, blah. So first of all, let me say, anytime you get up and present in front of an audience like this, and you show up as well as all of you all did, kudos to you, an excellent performance from that perspective. One of the things I would like to remind you is you only get one opportunity sometimes to make your pitch. So even if things aren't working right, and I will tell you technology is great till it's not, the microphone working is great till it doesn't, not being sure of your stage and all that kind of stuff, be prepared to really step into the space and roll, because you only have that moment in time. And once it's gone, it's gone. The sharing of the presentations and making sure each of you has as much equal time with both the sort of non-substantive and substantive material, so that people get confidence that if there's two of you, you both really know what's going on. 3 of you, 4 of you, everybody's got that engagement. I liked, there were different ones of you that had, and I don't want to use the word gimmick, but had things that really drew you to what your product was, like the red. The ladies, your red, the different ones had different red things on, to really tie you to the T-shirts that the guys had on in the first group. And I think the one thing is that making sure you're as confident about your product as you can possibly be when you're talking about it, because you have to convince people. So having a real ownership and passion, and the level of energy you bring to the presentations, I think is really important. There's a lot more I could say, but there are 4 other people here, so I'll shut up.
Yeah, by all means. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's overall with the pitch itself, the 8 pitches, really appreciate, again, the work that went into that, as Crystal mentioned. I think some of the comments, where I lean in is when you're starting to talk about the habits. And when you can start to really weave a habit in, to the conversation, if you will. Love the artwork, but just some examples of the habits. But weaving it into the pitch over the course of the 4 minutes would be one constructive thought that I would have. When you have something also like the London Idea Foundation, lean in, because it's really powerful, the networking opportunities, who you're working with, lean in. Assume we don't know what that is and educate us a little bit on that as well, because others might learn from that. My last comment, being an airline guy, if we're supposed to start at 1:30 and end at 2:40, we should end at 2:40, right? Because if we bought a webcast that says that we would be done at 2:40, and I'm doing an earnings call, we're going to lose over the last 40 minutes, we just lost some of our audience. So for all of us, including those of us on the panel, and we had the timing, boy, time is really important. So really, really appreciate the work today. Over to the rest of the panel.
So I'm just going to follow up with Dave and what Crystal said. In terms of owning the stage, you really should own the stage. Speak loudly, speak clearly. You may sound loud to yourself, but the audience is pretty far back. Also, don't fidget. When you're looking to answer questions, don't sway, don't fidget. Have that strong stance that we often talk about. In terms of content, one thing that I felt was sometimes, and I realize I'm going right into the critique, and if you know me, you know this is how I am. But your next steps, right? Your next steps, because you have a panel here, you have an audience there. And for me, when I'm listening to things, I'm always thinking, okay, how can I help this team? How can I help this group? And I imagine that a lot of people in the audience and on the panel are thinking that too. And if you have clear next steps, not even just financial need, but like I need to sit down and talk with somebody about taxes, for instance, with venue tourists. Like, you know, that's a great way to relay it. And then somebody could be like, well, you know what? I'm going to give you my business card. Reach out to me. Let's have coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my first time serving on the BLI panel, so I was really pleasantly surprised with the diversity of projects that were presented, with the confidence, with the enthusiasm in general that you all had related to your specific projects. With that being said, I would really lean in on the personal connection to create a genuine connection with the audience, right? If I can genuinely feel why this issue is important to you, I'm significantly more likely to stay engaged, to stay actively listening word for word throughout your presentation, because I know that you all devoted a lot of time and energy into the research, into the execution, so make sure that that is demonstrated when you're up there presenting in certain things like posture, like tone, just the level of voice and enthusiasm that you have all help create a more genuine connection with your audience. But overall, amazing job for everyone.
Thank you, Crystal. First of all, I don't know what they're putting in the water here, but you guys are absolutely unbelievable, certainly compared to the students that were in school here and my friends when I was here. So congratulations. Except for Crystal, who was just like you guys.
We graduated together. I cannot let him say things like that.
I would say it's really important before you make presentations in front of groups of people, whether it's a person or a large group of people. Ask yourself, am I organized? Am I thinking in a way? Am I allowing the receiver of the presentation to receive the information I'm providing in a really organized way that will help them understand it? Number two, assume the crowd knows nothing, right? You guys, I think, are all a little bit overly, your presentations, I think, suggest that we know way more than we do. So recognize we don't know anything. And typically most people you're talking to are not going to know that much about what you're talking about. And then three, don't forget to ask why. Why does this make sense? Does it make sense? I've got a pricing model. Does it make sense in the real world? Have I thought it through? And so that you're not throwing stuff out that you really can't back up when it comes to really tough questioning. But terrific job. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got some wins. We've got some things to work on. So thank you. We really appreciate all your feedback. So if you're inspired, if you're moved today, if your curiosity was piqued, all the students will be back at their tables by their posters. So you please, they've been really hard. They'd love to have you come and visit them. I also want to give thanks. Build a team is one of our habits. It's in your books. If you didn't see, we have all the habits listed, so please take a look. Leadership is a social activity. Important problems generally cannot be tackled alone. As I mentioned earlier, we expected a challenge, which is also another habit. Our caterer didn't show, so I want to give thanks to both Elizabeth Rohr and Elizabeth Kane-Toth and Aries and Ethan and Sanji and Aries, who just all formed a catering company in the last hour and a half while we were stretching time, and Mr. Barger noticed, but we were stretching time. So please eat some food because we have produced a spread for you. And we are now the BLI Catering Company in addition to the BLI Leadership Institute. So please have some food and thank our staff here that did incredible work. Thank you.